Welcome to the Just Baseball Show. It is Wednesday, July 1st. That's Ryan Finkelstein. I am Peter Apple. And because it's the first of the month, Power Rankings. Ryan's got his top 30. I got my top 30. And we're going to debate. And at the end, we're going to go through the best hitters and pitchers of the month, both in the American League and the National League. And it's all brought to you by BetMGM. World Cup, USA plays today. Place a pregame straight match result bet on any World's Game match. And if, let's say it's the USA, they take a 2-goal lead at any point in the game, your bet pays out as a win. The winnings are yours regardless of the outcome of the game. And when the US scores, you also score. Win a share of $500,000 in bonus bets for every United States goal. Place a $5 or more pre-match bet on any World's Game match in which the U.S. is playing and apply your Goal Rush token. You'll win a share of $500,000 in bonus bets for every goal scored by the U.S. in the match. Remember to use code JUSTBASEBALL before you make your first pick, because if it loses, you'll get whatever you wagered on it back in bonus bets. BetMGM, make it legendary. Remember to use BetMGM for the World Cup, rest of MLB season, and keep it going. Think, I'm excited. And I say that a lot when you join, but normally it's to make fun of the Mets, but we're not going to make fun of the Mets today. I don't think we are, right? What's there to make fun of the Mets for?
I mean, maybe their place in the power rankings. That might be one area where I could just see you throwing a quick jab, but I mean, we should roll through it. I mean, do we need to spend time on how poor the Mets are in these rankings? I don't know if we have to spend too much, but if you want to, we can. I'm here for it.
Well, we are going to go in blocks of 5. So
Okay.
30 to 26, 25 to 21. And I noticed, because you guys just released your power rankings on justbaseball.com, which everybody can go read. It is now live again on the website. I made my own power rankings, and Fink and I are going to disagree a little bit, which I think segues us into 30 through 26. But right before Peyton, you do, thank you to all of you guys joining us here live on YouTube. The best way to support these YouTube live streams, make sure to smash the like button and subscribe button. And let's see you guys in the chat. I want to hear, do you agree with Fink? Do you agree with me on our selections for the top 30 teams in Major League Baseball? And then we're going to get together and decide again our players of the month. We got to hear it. Agree or disagree. Now it's time for 30 through 26. Podcast P, would you bless us? Would you bless us with the graphics? So as you can see, on Just Baseball's side, going down from 30 through 26. So it was Ryan along with 3 other writers, and then you got mine. So for the Just Baseball side, Rockies at 30, Mets at 29, Angels at 28, Giants at 27, Royals at 26. On my side, Rockies at 30, Royals at 29, Giants at 28, Angels at 27, Mets at 26. So we have the same 5 teams, just in a different order. And now with the Rockies, again at number 30, we're pretty much aligned there. But on my power rankings, I went with the Royals at 29. And you went with?
The Mets. So, I mean, you like the Mets, huh? You looked at the Mets this month, who had, I think the only team who had a worse record in baseball was the Reds. You saw them fire their manager. You see where they're at. You see, you know what, though? I like them better. I appreciate it, personally, and the editorial team. We do really grade this as a power ranking for us. We are looking at, of course, where they're at for the whole season. We're also looking at recent performance, and the Mets have just been so bad that we dropped them down to 29. But I appreciate, that you had them at 26.
I think that's where our rankings differ, and that's why I'm glad that we have different rankings, because mine is more of a full season outlook while also somewhat looking forward. Not all the way, but at least it's in the back of my mind when 2 teams are even, they've had a similar season. Who do I like more for the rest of the year? That's kind of how mine are ranked. Yours are more June related. So when I look at the Mets, and the reason I didn't rank them 29th is, well, number one, of the 5 teams that we just discussed, they have the best run differential. They also have the best record. They've faced a lot of teams that are above 500. 21-35 record isn't great, but they have had a tough schedule because of how good the division is. And I think that you give a team like the Mets a little bit of a break in that area. And it's also still on paper a much more talented team than the other four. Again, 26 is 26, but I do think that they are ahead of teams like the Angels and the Giants and certainly the Royals, because I've said it on this show and I feel like the Royals, for whatever reason, are kind of getting a pass from national media. Just generally speaking, you don't really hear about the Royals being as bad as they are, but they've truly been horrific. I mean, they have a negative 76 run differential. That's the second worst in Major League Baseball. They've gotten destroyed by teams over 500. They can't win at home. They can't win on the road. One of the lowest amount of runs scored in the league. They allow a ton of runs. Cole Reagan's just got put on the shelf. There's not a lot of pitchers in their rotation that you can rely on. The middle of their lineup has been a big disappointment. You know, Bobby Witt Jr. has been great. Carter Jensen is heating up. But Michael Garcia has largely been a disappointment this season compared to last year. Vinny has been hurt and not very good. Salvi has been arguably the worst player in baseball. Their acquisition of Isaac Collins hasn't exactly gone well for them. You know, a player like Michael Massey, who Royals fans always loved, I think a lot more than others, hasn't exactly stepped forward this year. And the bullpen. It's just a terrible team, right? We're in the bottom of the power rankings. They haven't been good, and I don't expect them to get that much better.
I do think Michael Massey, sneaky decent June. Just so you know, sneaky decent
June. Good.
What to explain our rankings a little bit? You look at the previous rankings, and when you follow along the site, by the way, if you hate the power rankings, do us a favor. Let us know on the Discus over on the site. You can now comment on our article. So it's another place that you can disagree with me. But we have a previous ranking that goes back to last month. And you look, the Royals, the Giants, and the Angels were all sitting in the exact same rankings last month. And they all basically played to the same record. So for us, it was just a matter of, you know, did the Giants differentiate themselves over the Royals, who we had ranked ahead of them last month? Like, not really. You know, did the Angels differentiate themselves? And so we kept those three teams exactly where they were. The Mets slid all the way back, and then you have another team here that we'll talk about later that rose up a little bit. But that's kind of why we went the way we did. Again, we are grading on that recent performance a little bit, and that kind of does skew the rankings. I do agree with you moving forward. I could see the Mets having a better record than all these other teams from here on out. But I also think that compared to like a Giants or certainly the Angels and even potentially the Royals, I think the Mets are also going to be more committed as sellers than I think most teams as well. So once we get into August and September, like you could see what has been a pretty good Mets bullpen be completely, you know, decimated with just all the trades where it's just not much left. And some of the strengths of this team could certainly be going away in a month's time, because I think the Mets, just like they did in 2023, they're probably going to commit to selling, and they're going to be open to pretty much dealing anyone that they can get a decent return for.
I'm not sure what timeline we just stumbled in, because here I am defending the Mets to Ryan Finkelstein, the host of Locked On Mets, with a Rumble Ponies hat and a big Mets flag behind him. But I guess my counter to that would be, all right, so you're going to sell Freddie Peralta and his high 4s ERA. You're going to sell David Peterson, which you already did, in his 6 ERA. Now, I think losing Luke Weaver would be tough. Potentially trading AJ Minter, now that he's back, would be tough. Is that ruining the Mets? I just feel like they're kind of getting rid of the guys. And that's why, looking at the Mets trade deadline, it's like, what are they really going to get back? Because you're not trading Carson Bench, who I expect to continue to play well, AJ Ewing. I think Lindor is going to be better. He's not going anywhere. Juan Soto isn't going anywhere. You're going to trade Mark Vientos, who's been a hole at first base? Might make you better. So. Right? Might make you better. Are you going to trade Brett Beatty, who's been one of the more disappointing young players in baseball? I don't think that's going to make you a lot worse. So, yes, they will be committed sellers. They might get better. They might be the first team in MLB history to sell and get better.
That's not true. You remember your Yankees? I don't know what deadline that was, where they sold Beltran and everybody else, and they still nearly made the playoffs. But you know, that's
happened before. Of course, it's happened before. But I'm talking about turning the season around. As long as you get rid of the dead weight.
Yeah. Again, I think for us, it just comes down to the Mets have now had 2 months where they've been the worst team in baseball.
Yes.
Okay, like they're or right there. The Reds were like slightly worse this month. The Reds were 9-17. The Mets were 10-17. But In the month of April, they had the worst record. In the month of June, they had the worst record. And so now we go to July, and I'm sure they're going to bounce back, and I'm sure they won't be probably in this grouping of teams moving forward. But presently, with the state of Mets baseball that I've been covering every day, yeah, it's pretty close to worse than anything but the Rockies.
We're splitting hairs on 26 and 29. Let's move over to the next block, podcast P. Now we're looking at 25 through 21. And on the just baseball side, you got the Reds at 25, you got the Tigers at 24, you got the Orioles at 23, the Red Sox at 22, and the A's at 21. And we're still aligned on the same teams, just a slightly different order. I have the Orioles at 25, the Reds at 24, the Tigers at 23, the Red Sox at 22, and the A's at 21. So I assume your firmest disagreement might be the Orioles for me at 25. I mean, you have them at 23. I actually thought we might have a little bit different power rankings because, again, we created them differently, but we all still are landing around a similar area. So at least give me the pitch for why the Orioles are better than a team like the Tigers, where I see the Tigers with a better run differential. Skubal is now back healthy. You still got Fromber. You got Troy Melton really stepping up. You got Casey Mize being one of the best pitchers in the month of June, and Kiter Montero. It's just a rotation that I trust a lot more. And when we're comparing offenses, the Tigers have stunk up the joint. Have the Orioles really been that much better? It's been minimal. And then the bullpen, they both have question marks. And the Tigers at least have put together much better stretches with this core than the Orioles have. We can't forget the Orioles finished in last. Last year was 75 wins. And now they're on pace to do it again. But for some reason, people got to praise them because they remember that their farm system was awesome 5 years ago.
It was exciting. Remember, they were the next team.
That was mean. They won 100+ games like 3 years ago. I'm not forgetting about that.
But what a fall from grace. I mean, look, I wrote that in the piece too. I talked about the Orioles and just how this is playing out a lot like it did last year, where you have a team that goes into the season and they hope to have expectations to contend. And it just hasn't happened. To be honest with you, like I'm not like super hardcore to say, oh, the Orioles are so much better than the Tigers. I absolutely could have slid the Tigers up a spot. We thought about it. We ended up landing here, but it was a coin flip to me. At the end of the day, the Tigers moving forward, I probably would take. It was just a matter of they were our last ranked team in the previous power rankings. How many slots were we going to move them up? It definitely could have gone the other way. I could have, even when I was writing it, I was like, should we have dropped the Orioles a couple more slots? But then you already have the graphics team working on it. It's like, does it really change the world for us to have the Orioles at 23 instead of at 24, even 25? I will say the Reds, I even had them lower initially because of how bad they were in May. And we kind of, as an editorial team, went back and forth on it. I think looking forward, I just don't know. Are the Tigers, is it too little too late? Like they had a good month of June. Is it too little too late for them? Is kind of where I'm at here, where if they sell Skubal, like, isn't that team just going to kind of short? Like there's not going to be anything beyond a Skubal trade. And are they going to do enough to actually avoid trading him? Or I don't know.
It's a great question and one I've been trying to answer. Like, I really want to press the plus 600 button on BetMGM to make the playoffs. I go to it every day and I'm like, is today the day? Because I said against the Astros that if they performed well in that series, I was going to buy it. Why? Because I thought they'd take advantage of a Yankees team on a terrible slide. It's exactly what they've done against the Yankees, but they didn't show up against the Astros. So, and then they started winning a couple games against the Yankees, and I'm like, oh, am I too late? I don't really know what to do. We're talking to Buster Olney tomorrow, and I want to get some insight into what the Tigers are currently thinking at this deadline. Because, and it might be crazy to say that even if they traded Tarek Skubal, I still think that they could go on a run, considering that they have 4 other arms in the rotation that I trust. What the Tigers need to do is get their heads out of their asses against teams that are below 500. They are 12 games below 500 overall. They're 14 games under 500 against teams under 500. They're 23 and 21 against better teams in baseball. What? So you're playing up to your competition. You're facing the Yankees right now and trouncing them. 6 runs against Cam Schlittler. You gave up 4 homers yesterday. And that was on the heels of them bum rushing Ryan Weathers. Or maybe it was Will Warren. I can't remember. There were so many home runs flying that I forget who was on the mound because they were out after like an inning and 2/3. So again, in theory, the Tigers should be a lot higher on these power rankings based on my opinion of them as a baseball team. However, they're not playing like it. But I'm still there at 23 because I weirdly think that even if they trade Skubal, this is a team that could still compete without him. I do.
This is the thing with the American League right now is they're 6.5 games back. And I mean, I would venture to guess that even in mid-August last year, the Guardians were probably even further back and they found their way into the playoffs.
Because these teams, they're not that good in the American League. All of them could go on bad losing streaks at any given time, right? The Red Sox have won 7 of their last 10 games. And we're now talking about them in the wild card when they've been a utter disaster all season long. And there seems to be a Craig Breslow hit piece coming out every week. And yet they won 4 in a row. That's the nature of the American League. And that's why this season, I think so far has been so unpredictable. The Blue Jays, the Red Sox, the Orioles. We went into the season thinking the American League East was the best division. I think the Rays had the lowest win total of all of them. Now they're atop the division. The AL Central is a complete crapshoot. The team that was supposed to, the Tigers, favored to win the division in 4th. The Royals, everyone's favorite darling pick, in 5th. The West, the Rangers are in 1st. And they're not even that good. I would know. I have a Rangers future. And I'm watching them like, I'll take the wins. I'm talking to our friend, another Ryan, in our Discord. We're celebrating the Rangers wins while they win 3-2 and 4-2. And then Seager goes on the IL. And then Langford goes on the IL. Nobody's any good. The Yankees, since Katie Sharp, great Twitter follow for all Yankee fans. She just came out with a stat. I think the Yankees are the first team since 1898. Peyton, I'm curious if you could pull this up just so I don't misquote it. It's one of the worst stats I've ever seen in my entire life, Fink. I can't wait for Peyton to pull. It's like since 1890, the 2026 Yankees are the first team to go through like a 5-game stretch where they struck out 45 times, only had 16 hits, and then gave up a bunch of earned runs. And they're the cream of the crop in the American League, right?
There's like legitimately 2 teams that I would say are definitely good. And that would be the Yankees and the Rays. Like you go through the other, and maybe one other, as we're focusing on this block of 5 in particular, can you explain to me why the Red Sox are so bad? Because you look at individual seasons, and I think that I wrote in the piece, it said the Boston Red Sox are an enigma wrapped in a riddle. It doesn't make sense to me how their off season, like Breslow's getting a lot of flack and rightfully so. Like the moves they made have pretty much worked. Ranger Suarez, Sonny Gray at the top of that rotation. That's worked. Here's the stat here. So yeah, it will be teams.
Yeah, so here's the stat. MLB teams since at least 1898 to have a 5-game span with 0 wins, 45 plus strikeouts, and 16 or fewer hits. The 2026 Yankees, end list. I mean, that's just an abysmal stat.
It is. But getting back to my thoughts on the Red Sox, to have Suarez and Gray be as good as they've been, to have Wilson Contreras be the best hitter on the Red Sox, even now Caleb Durbin is starting to come on strong here a little bit as well. Like, how are the Red Sox this bad?
I'll tell you why. I mean, there's more than one reason. Garrett Crochet at the top of your rotation getting hurt certainly doesn't help. But when I watch Red Sox games, I see a complete lack of a game-changing swing. They're 30th in home runs. They have the 5th lowest slugging percentage with runners in scoring position. They have to win a lot of these low-scoring games, and there just seem to be a lot of days in a row where the starter would have it, then the bullpen wouldn't. Or both would have it, and they would make a couple of errors. Like they never lined up, and then they couldn't overcome any small deficiencies because they couldn't change the game with one swing. And I'm not even just talking about homers. They also have one of the lowest slugging percentages in Major League Baseball. So those big doubles in the gap to clear the bases, they weren't getting those. And then when Jarren Duran is near the top of the lineup with an OPS that starts with a 5, when Caleb Durbin, I know he's been much better in June, not surprising, they're now better. Roman Anthony gets hurt in their lineup. Like, it's really just been Wilson Contreras hitting his home runs. And if he doesn't, they weren't hitting for any power. So it was just a lack of impact. And they couldn't overcome small deficiencies. That's why the Red Sox have a positive run differential. Because they're not that bad of a team. They just lack what's arguably the most important factor for winning in Major League Baseball. Zero power.
And yet both of us ranked 8 teams below them in these power rankings. It's wild. It really feels right now like there is this tier in the National League that we're going to get to at the top of these power rankings where I just almost can't see any other team winning the World Series than the top tier in the National League, because there's so much bad in baseball right now, particularly in the American League. But even some of these National League teams that we've already talked about have just been atrocious. It's like there's a giant gap, too, between the bottom of the NL and the top of the NL as well. And then you just have the American League where there's not much good in it.
100%. Are you good on this section? Do you want to highlight any other teams before we move on?
Not really. I mean, we didn't mention the A's at all, but I don't know what there is to mention if you wanted to.
Here's what there is to mention. I've kind of said this all year, and sometimes I feel bad saying it because I don't want to hurt fans' feelings. I just have to tell you what I'm seeing with no filter. This is just what I'm seeing. Here you go. You can love it or you can hate it. I've always been low on the A's. I almost made one of my futures A's under 75.5 wins. And I remember talking to Arm and he thought that was crazy. And it might not hit, right? The A's are 40 and 46. They could win 75 games this year, or 76, which would constitute the over. But when I watch the A's, I don't feel good about any of their pitchers. And I was really interested to watch that Gage jumpstart against the Dodgers because he's been really good and he's a really good young pitcher and I like him moving forward. And I thought this against the Dodgers lineup is a great test because the Dodgers are really struggling against left-handed pitching this year. In the month of June, going into that start, they were a bottom 5 offense against lefties. Now, overall, their season numbers are still great. It was just a period where they were struggling. Jump has been on a heater. Let's see how he does. He got crushed. They have nobody in the rotation outside of maybe JT Ginn, who I'm like, okay, him and Jump, I could see it. Springs, not so much, right? And then the other guys, not so much. The bullpen, definitely not. And I think their offense is overrated. Let's look at runs scored in Major League Baseball. Where do the A's rank? They have 394 runs scored this year. And I'm looking at other teams, and I'm like, 394? I mean, the Angels are at 391. Rockies are at 397. Orioles are at 397. Those aren't offenses that you would get really, really excited about. But for whatever reason, people put the A's in this incredible bucket of offenses. And I'm just like, the numbers have not backed that up. I get it. Kurtz is out of this world. Tyler Soderstrom is a great hitter. I know he just got put on the IL. You know, I like Jacob Wilson. Lawrence Butler has been a complete disaster. Carlos Cortez was fun. Shea Langlear's bangs. But overall, the lineup is not as intimidating as everybody says. So just generally speaking, I'm lower on the A's than I think the market and fans in general.
The other thing, too, you mentioned runs scored, and they had a nice little Vegas bump, too. Like, you could probably shave like 20 100%. Runs off of what they've done this year, too. That's not even mentioning Sacramento. So
exactly.
It's like,
that's why their WRC plus is, in the middle of the pack to bottom 10. But for whatever reason, they're vaulted into the top 10, which based on kind of nothing other than it's a youthful team that people are excited about. But to your point, they also play in a hitter's heaven. And they still don't have 400 plus runs. My freaking Minnesota Twins are in the 420s. They don't get to play in that kind of park, and nobody cares about them except me and the 4.3 percenters. But we're not going to talk about the Twins yet. I heard Aram.
Are we? Or are we?
Well, can we hear quickly from our friends at Hampton Farms Peanuts? Podcast P?
Top of the 9th, outside the friendly confines. Here comes the famous Peanut Pete splitter.
Hampton Farms Peanuts. Fun to crack,
better to eat. Get 25% off a large assortment of nuts on hamptonfarms.com using code JUSTBASEBALL.
There we go. Hampton Farms Peanuts, 20% off using code JUSTBASEBALL. All right, let's move into 20 through 16. I'm going to try and be nicer. I've been a little bit mean, but we are at the bottom of the power rankings. It's hard to be all that nice when I'm telling you what I'm saying. Just Baseball is 20 through 16. Arizona Diamondbacks at 20, Toronto Blue Jays at 19, Minnesota Twins at 18, Pittsburgh Pirates at 17, and the Washington Nationals at 16. I have the Blue Jays at 20, the Astros at 19, the Twins at 18, and that was on purpose. The Twins and the Astros are playing. It's currently 1-1 in the series, and this is my stamp. Twins win that game, so that's why I put them slightly above. Arizona Diamondbacks at 17, Washington Nationals at 16. So I have the Astros at 19. You don't even have them in this bucket, but you have the Pittsburgh Pirates. I want to hear from you why you are, I guess, lower on the Pirates than I am. And then I'll tell you why I'm lower on the Astros. What are we talking about? I've already forgot the rankings.
Yeah, so we have the Astros a little higher up. They're in the next grouping of 5. And yes, we have the Pirates down here at 17. I think for us, again, you're looking at the record in the month of June, and the Astros actually strung together a pretty good month. The Pirates were below 500. I do think that this lineup has been much better than it was previously, but I don't know. I still am not fully bought in that the Pirates are going to be contenders this year. And again, we are looking at what happened in June, and they have some good starting pitchers, but overall their pitching wasn't entirely great. It's just a team that I'm not fully bought into. Their bullpen is brutal, and that's not helping. So I guess if they can hang in and at the deadline they pick up a closer, maybe that's all they need, and maybe they can really get back into this thing. But I don't know. In the National League, I just think the Pirates are going to keep on sliding, and it's not like we had them drop too much. They were 13th in the last rankings. We dropped them 4 slots after a month where they went 11 and 15. So that was kind of our rationale behind it. And I can certainly talk about the Astros more when we get to the section that we put them in. But I'm curious why you don't believe in what was a pretty good month for the Astros.
So I think it's a good example of the difference in our rankings, right? You're looking at June more closely, and that's influencing your rankings. And I'm really just looking at the full season and also projecting forward slightly. And one of the reasons I like the Pirates is squarely on their starting pitching staff. Paul Skeens is not going to pitch to an ERA above 3 this year. He's just not. He's going to get better. He's going to have dominating performances and put himself right back into the National League Cy Young. I feel very confident in that. Bubba Chandler's starting to figure it out a little bit. He's looked a lot better. Command has looked a lot better. We know how good this stuff is. As long as he's in the zone, he can become one of the best young pitchers in Major League Baseball. Braxton Ashcraft just had a rough start, I think, in his last outing, but ultimately he has been one of the best pitchers in baseball. So you have Skeens and Ashcraft. Keller is just solid, right at the back of the rotation. And Jared Jones is the wild card. He's come back, hasn't looked great, has been inconsistent, but the stuff largely has been there. And I'm going to give him some leeway coming back from injury. So I really like this rotation. Offensively, they have had a tough month. It's also been a month without O'Neal Cruz, which certainly hurts because O'Neal Cruz is putting together a really, really solid season. So they lost arguably their best hitter. And Brandon Lau wasn't hitting a home run every single day like he was through the first 2 months of the season. But I still believe in this offense, at least to the point where if Ben Cherington goes out and adds one more bat, I think it could be a solid offense. And one of the main points that people brought up about the Pirates preseason was that this team could be the worst defensive team of all time. And they wouldn't be able to reach their ceiling because any ball in play would go through the legs of anybody on the field. But with Connor Griffin solidifying the shortstop role, they are a bottom 10 defense. 21st in outs above average, like 20th in defensive runs saved, or around that bucket. It's not as bad as we thought. They have to address the bullpen. It is certainly a problem. I remember Arm saying yesterday on the show that he only trusts Evan Sisk. I'm with him. For me, it used to be Gregory Soto also, but he has just not been good lately. So they have to add bullpen arms and they have to add a bat. But it is a team with a great starting rotation and a lot of very solid pieces on offense, notably Brian Reynolds and Ryan O'Hearn still. Esmeralyn Valdez has come up and feels like he's replacing Brandon Lau with the hitting the home run every single day. And then, of course, Connor Griffin. They got guys. And moving forward, I feel pretty good about them. Now, for the Astros, getting Josh Hader back helps. Getting Hunter Brown back helps. But I still have a similar view of this team where after Josh Hader, not in love with a lot of their options. Even though Josh Hader is great, but normally you got to have a lead and then he'll close it out. Those games you will win. And the offense is, again, good, not great. Right? So far this season, the Astros have scored 397 runs. They're in kind of that same boat. And now Jeremy Pena just hit the shelf again. And I think Pena, next to Jordan, is the most important player on the Astros. Not only for what he can do with the plate, but from the defense that he provides at shortstop. There's a lot of Astros lineups that they put out there where you love the top 3 or 4, and then it drops off the face of the planet. Again, not a great bullpen. I like the Pirates pitching staff, like starting pitching staff, a lot better. And I just don't see the offenses as all that different. I mean, the Pirates have scored 43 more runs than them this year. I mean,
it's fair. That's fair.
43 more runs, but everybody's telling me the Astros offense is awesome. I'm like, I'm not seeing it, and it's not in the numbers.
I guess for me, I have made the mistake of doubting the Astros in past seasons, and then they just kind of start to figure it out. And when you still have Yordan Alvarez right near the top of that lineup, Altuve, Christian Walker, Paredes, like they have still a core of guys that I'm just going to believe in a little bit more than the upstart Pirates. But again, this season, I hear what you're saying as far as how good the Pirates have been, run differential and all of that. It's for us, the Astros are coming off what was a really good month.
Yeah.
And I have seen the Astros start off really poorly. I think last year was the season where first 2 months it was awful. And then they just found their way throughout the year to get better and better. And then granted, didn't finish well, but I don't know. I guess there's part of me that's still, if I'm comparing Astros to Pirates, I'm just going to defer to the franchise that has known how to win compared to a Pirates team that I need to see, actually win and sustain it. But I think that the Pirates can, if they're really aggressive at this deadline to address the deficiencies that they have, they absolutely can be a playoff team. It's just, are they going to push the pieces in to get the bullpen help they need? Are they going to just swallow Marcell Ozuna's money and just cut him and not have to deal with that anymore and try to find a better right-handed bat for that slot? There's definitely a few things that they can do that can really help this team, and maybe even in a way that's a lot better or easier than the Astros. Like they might have easier holes to fill at the deadline, and maybe they are a team that we're going to look back in a couple months and the Just Baseball editorial team was way down on the Pirates when they shouldn't have been, but off of an 11 and 15 month, they dropped a couple slots for us.
No, it makes sense. What about the Diamondbacks? D-backs at 20 seems a bit generous, I'll be honest, which is funny because I'm at 17. King Dak at 9828. I'm curious, are you saying that 20 is too low? Do you agree with me more, or you think that your D-backs should be even lower than 20? The D-backs are a tough team because, again, they just lost a big piece in Michael Soroka. And it's an offense that I still think is good at the top. Good defensive team, good base running team. Their bullpen has been better than I think a lot of people expected. A lot of guys have stepped up in that pen. It's not a great bullpen by any means, but it's a good bullpen. It's a fine bullpen. What I'm saying is they exceeded expectations. The starting rotation has been the biggest issue because their two main guys, Gallen and Kelly, that have kept them afloat for years, have just been underwhelming, disappointing, terrible. Pick your way to describe it. Gallen with an ERA over 6. I thought Merrill Kelly, I'm watching the Rays D-backs game. I switched over. I watched the first inning and then switched back over in the fifth. And I was like, oh, Merrill Kelly has only allowed 3 runs to the Rays. And we're in the fifth. That's pretty good. And then I'm thinking, that's a shitty thing to think. What are we talking about? This is Merrill Kelly. And I'm excited about that. But that goes to show where Merrill Kelly is at right now. So those 2 guys have not been able to hold up the D-backs rotation like they might normally would. So they've needed guys to step in, like Michael Soroka, like Eduardo Rodriguez. And they have, but then you lose Michael Soroka to injury. And you look at Eduardo Rodriguez's underlying numbers and they tell him to retire. I still think he could be effective. Should we expect what he's done going forward? No. And I might have been, now looking back on it, now really talking it out, I might have been a little bit too high on them. But they still are a team over 500. They're really tough to beat at Chase Field. They're 26-17, which I think has helped them. But when pushed up against teams over 500, they're 14-32. Yuck. So when faced with better competition, they consistently falter. So maybe he makes a good point. They shouldn't be considered in the top 15 in the league. I get it. I totally get it.
Yeah, I mean, we had them last month at 7. So for us,
Whoa.
Yeah, that's a big drop off to get down to 20. And if you wanted to, you could drop them further. It's just we got to remember the 10 teams that we ranked under them and how poor those teams are as well. But they're definitely trending in the wrong direction. You look at that top line talent, and it's easy to still be like, oh well, they still got the guys to figure this thing out, right? Especially on the offense. But like you said, I mean, Gallen and Kelly, what a fall from grace, particularly Gallen for the last 2 years. At least Merrill Kelly was good last season, and he's been a little banged up this year. At least he was at the start of the season. So maybe you can explain it a little bit. Also, he's 38 years old, 37 years old. But Zach Gallen, I mean, this guy was 2 years ago staring down a $150 million contract. And I mean, he's now obviously he probably needs a change of scenery next year to try to get things right. But I don't know what team is going to be fired up to take that chance on Zach Gallen after the past 24 months of baseball is going to have put up going into free agency. So yeah, it's a team that can certainly lock in if those guys aren't just scheduled losses and your offense starts to go. But there's a reason they dropped 13 slots, and I wouldn't be surprised if they kept on falling.
Before I ask you about another team that you want to mention in this block before we move to the next one, Zach Gallen has a 6.97 road ERA. So maybe he should stay with the Diamondbacks. 5.27, and he's always pitched well at Chase Field. That's the tough part, is I don't know if a change of scenery would be good for him.
I don't even think it's necessarily the ballpark he's pitching in. I just think sometimes guys need to go somewhere else. You know what I mean?
No,
I don't think it's necessarily
a new pitching coach, just something to switch something up.
Yeah, exactly.
You want to move to the next block, or you want to highlight another team?
I think
should we talk about how many runs the Twins have scored? How awesome they are?
If you want to, if you want to, why aren't the Twins better than the Pirates, Peter? Aren't they?
No, I think the Pirates are better. But I still love my Twins. All right, Podcast B, I think it's time to move over to our next block. And I think right now we're getting into the top 15. On the just baseball side, you got the Mariners at 15, the Astros at 14, the Rangers at 13, a stack of American League West teams. Then you got the Padres at 12 and the Cardinals at 10. I have the Pirates at 15, the Mariners at 14, the Padres at 13, the Cleveland Guardians at 12, which means you have them in your top 10. And then I have the Texas Rangers at 11. Now, I have the Pirates in this group, and you have the Cardinals. I have the Cardinals a little bit higher than you. But where do you want to start? Should we start with your opinion that you like the Astros better than the Mariners?
So, for one, when we do these power rankings, if I can, and it makes sense, and I see teams that are close in the same division, I do think it's just good for conversation, good to kind of group them together. And so, yeah, there was some intention behind Mariners, Astros, Rangers, all grouped like that. And to me, it's almost just a testament of how wide open this division is. You can say, oh, well, the Rangers are in first. They're the favorite right now. You could say on paper, the Mariners should be the favorite. And then there's the Astros that have owned this division for a long time that I'm never going to count out. So those three teams, right now, to me, are just neck and neck. There's not much differentiation yet from what we've seen this season. And the reason why we put the Astros over the Mariners, I'll keep coming back to it. They had a good month. They were 16-11 in the month of June.
Yeah.
They played better baseball than the Mariners did. And these teams are all kind of blocked together. The Rangers also were 16-11. And I think moving forward, like them a little bit better. So that's kind of how we came to our decision on that block of 3. I do like having, again, those teams together. So it really kind of inspires that debate of, well, who should have been the best of the 3. But that's where we were at for now. I just think that's such an open division. Like it seems like every year the AL West kind of comes down to these 3 teams, and it's always like month by month kind of different, especially the last few seasons before, one team might separate themselves. I just don't know which one of these teams is going to separate themselves, honestly.
Yeah, it's hard to know, especially because the Rangers have won 6 in a row, and then right now they're losing 5-1 to the Cleveland Guardians, and Corey Seager just went on the shelf, and Wyatt Langford has been on the shelf, like I said earlier. They're a really tough team to gauge. What I do know is that, or not what I do know, what I think is the Rangers are the best team when Langford and Seager are back in the lineup and everybody's healthy. Because I look at the Mariners and I think, well, history would say Cal Raleigh's going to turn it around. There's nothing that I've seen that tells me that's just going to happen immediately. Julio Rodriguez, I love. But I look at the rest of the lineup and I'm like, all right, Randy's pretty good. Josh Naylor's okay. And then there's just a lot of guys who I'm just watching bad ABs over and over again, and they can't hit left-handed pitching at all. It's like you throw anyone with their left arm and the Mariners just fall into a puddle. The starting pitching staff is still fantastic, but I feel like they've been costing themselves games with this piggyback thing that they've decided to do. And then it takes them down a bullpen arm, and their bullpen hasn't been very good, I think, as a result, because they're down a guy, because they've decided they need to keep Luis Castillo happy by keeping him in the rotation. Or with Emerson Hancock potentially putting him back in the bullpen. But I get why you wouldn't, because he's been one of their better pitchers. George Kirby hasn't had the best season. Logan Gilbert's been a lot better lately. Brian Woo's been better lately, but Brian Woo has been more inconsistent. They're just not getting the performances that they got last year from their stars. And then guys at the bottom of the lineup haven't picked up their share. The only guy I can point to on Seattle is Dominic Canzone. He has absolutely done a job and been a really good hitter this year. And he's hitting 3rd for a reason in this Mariners lineup. Dominic Canzone, right? So I think they're a fine team. I think they're around this bucket. I think the Astros are a fine team. I think the Rangers are a good team when healthy. The problem is they are now not healthy. And I think you're going to see the offense struggle, and you might see them take another step back. I agree. It is a hard clump, but I would still rank it Rangers, Mariners, Astros. I think that the Pena loss is going to be very, very tough. And I think the Seager and Langford losses are going to be tough. But the Rangers have a 4-game lead over them, or 3-game lead over them. So they have a head start, which is kind of the only reason that I'm putting them above. And I like the Rangers starting rotation better than Houston's.
I know that you never want to assume you have too much starting pitching. Like, that is a fool's errand. And honestly, just like Murphy's Law, had the Mariners traded Luis Castillo in the offseason, like 2 more guys might have just gotten hurt, just because that's how baseball works. But you notice sometimes when there is a common talking point of like, oh, the Mariners could use some of this pitching to get hitting. The Red Sox could use some of this outfield depth to improve their team, or they should clear up, they should trade Duran. And then when teams don't make those moves and it kind of blows up in their face, you're just like, yeah, maybe you should have, not been so dead set on keeping the same team. Also, I was curious. You were talking about the left-handed issues with this lineup facing lefties. And I was just like, let me check in on that Victor Robles extension. Maybe not the best way to spend some money. Maybe not. Who would have seen that coming? That he's got a 52 WRC plus after a 75 WRC plus last year. But we'll all remember 2024 when just, I don't know, it was baseball like Mike or something, like he put on a different set of cleats and just went off. I don't know.
Where are you at on the Cardinals before we get to the next grouping? Because I was high on the Cardinals going into the season, right? Told people to take their over 68.5 wins. It was one of my favorites. I thought it was a young team playing with nothing to lose. Now, a couple other guys have stepped up that I did not see coming. I didn't even really factor this Jordan Walker into my calculus. I thought he'd be better. I was excited. This could have never saw it coming. Liberatore just looked great against the Braves. He hasn't looked good all season, but he just delivered a dynamite outing. McGreevy's been good. Dustin May has been phenomenal lately. They got something, but I'm curious because maybe I'm biased because it's one of my preseason takes and one of my bets. So I'm curious your perspective on the Cardinals, and I want to hear moving forward.
So one funny story about the Cardinals and Jordan Walker in particular. I went to a spring training game with my dad this year, and they're lined up for the anthem. And as soon as it ends, my dad goes, "Who is that?" I was like, as Jordan Walker, I'm like, yeah, who's a top prospect, hasn't really put it together. And in the right in the beginning of the game, he draws a walk and gets picked off first. I'm like, yeah, God, that's Jordan Walker. And so to go from my first impression of Jordan Walker in a spring training game to what we've seen this year, he has been unbelievable. And I do think that looking at these rankings again, I could see where you maybe would say, oh, the Cardinals should be over the Guardians. Like, and that's, pretty much our difference here. Ultimately, they did go up 4 slots for us. We had them at 15. They're up to 11. They played about 500 baseball this month. I think you look at the lineup, there's a lot of guys who are performing really well. Alec Burleson, like no one talks about him, and he's just a really solid bat. They got a good lineup in the rotation. I think it's been far better than any of us could have expected. It's probably just kind of our preseason notions of a team that wasn't really supposed to be contending this year, that they've had maybe a slower climb up our power rankings, and they haven't really set the world on fire yet, where they've had a month where they've gone 16-10 and they've really just kind of showed us what they are. So maybe that's what's held them back a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I as we'll get into the Guardians in the next clump, like the Guardians had a pretty bad month of June, and we very well could have flipped those teams and slid the Guardians out and put the Cardinals in the top 10.
The Cardinals are an interesting team to look at because if I named their rotation, Michael McGreevy, Dustin May, Andre Palante, Kyle Leahy, and Matthew Liberatore, what type of feelings, think about it to everybody listening, maybe you're in your car, maybe you're listening wherever, doesn't make you feel all that great. You're like, they're 13th in ERA. That doesn't scream 13th in ERA. It also doesn't scream 2 guys who have an ERA under 4. It doesn't scream Michael McGreevy as a 3.12. Dustin May, again, has been one of the better pitchers in June. Like, they are a team where everyone is pretty good. They don't have the Astros with Yordan, which sounds really good on a mic. And it's like, well, they have him. They have Jeremy Pena. They have Josh Hader. They have Hunter Brown. Like, that feels better to say. So we inherently just think they might be better. I'm not saying, again, you ranked, I think, the Cardinals above the Astros, but close, right? I have the Cardinals at number 8, which, Peyton, if you could bring us into 10-5, and I want to talk about this Cardinals team really quickly. So again, let's just go through 10-6. Just Baseballs is 10 Cleveland Guardians, 9 Chicago White Sox, 8 Miami Marlins, 7 Chicago Cubs, 6 Tampa Bay Rays. I have 10 Miami Marlins, 9 Chicago White Sox, 8 St. Louis Cardinals, 7 Chicago Cubs, and 6 Philadelphia Phillies. The difference between ours is I have the Cardinals inside the top 10, you have the Guardians. And I think what the Cardinals are sneakily doing is looking a lot like those Guardians teams that everybody loved, right? There's few teams in Major League Baseball that are better defensively than the St. Louis Cardinals. They're 3rd in fielding run value. They're 5th in outs above average. They're 11th in defensive runs saved. They're also one of the better base running teams in Major League Baseball. A lot of the stuff that isn't sexy. And when you go through the lineup, there's 6 or 7 hitters that are either pretty good or really good. Again, their rotation, pretty good. Their bullpen, okay. Like, you add everything up and they don't jump out at you, but neither did the Guardians when they were winning the division and getting close to 90 plus wins. It's the same team. Really, really good at the little things. They don't make mistakes. They hit well with runners in scoring position. They get the big hits when needed, and their pitching is good enough to keep that offense in the ballgame. And arguably, the pitching has been better than the offense. Like, we need to start talking about the Heim Bloom Cardinals. I think similarly to those Guardians teams or those Rays teams maybe a few years ago that would surprise people. The Cardinals are a damn good baseball team.
See, they are, but also since May 1st, they're a game over 500. So it's like, I need to see them put it together and win more baseball games. It's just that simple to be a top 10 team. Granted, again, you can now poke plenty of holes in the Guardians and what they've done this season. And it's fair to say, yeah, we should have had the Cardinals over the Guardians. They have a better record. They're coming off a better month. So I get that. Ultimately, it's like where we put the White Sox, how much better are the White Sox than the Guardians this season?
Okay, question. Who do you think wins the Central, the White Sox or the Guardians? Because right now on BetMGM, the Guardians are the favorites to win it. But I don't know if I agree with that.
I think the White Sox should be the favorite. But again, it kind of just comes back to like one of these teams that has typically been a good second half team that has found their way to the top of a bad division kind of time and again. So I think that might be where they're going with it. But I
think the White Sox are better on paper.
I think you might be right. Honestly, I think it's hard to get over the preconceived notions we have about a team that's been as bad as anyone the last few years prior to this. Like, you have to really prove yourself. And, you know, the Chicago White Sox this past month, they didn't do anything spectacular. They did more of their work prior to this month. They were about a 500 team. So they almost have to work harder to get the respect, right? Because of where we just naturally kind of put the White Sox in our mind based on the last few seasons.
I think the White Sox should also get some credit for not having Munetaka Murakami, the guy who I think was first to 20 home runs in the American League, and then he got hurt, and they've just been having to figure it out offensively. And Sam Antonacci has really stepped up. If I said these words, Sam Antonacci and Sal Stewart have the same OPS, how does that make you feel when you hear that? Because we all think as baseball fans, well, Sal Stewart is one of the best young hitters in baseball. And he is. So is Sam Antonacci. Hit his 5th home run today. Not a big power guy, but again, he's hitting close to 300 this year. He's a good hitter. Miguel Vargas, one of the best offensive third basemen in baseball. Colson Montgomery could be one of the, I think, the first left-handed hitter to ever hit 40 home runs at the shortstop position. A crazy stat. He's on pace to do so. And they've just gotten contributions from a lot of other guys in the lineup, and the rotation ain't that bad. And the bullpen is actually, I think, pretty good. Or at least their high leverage arms are good. Now, Sir Anthony Dominguez has taken a little bit of a step back, but Grant Taylor is as good as it gets. You know, I'm trying to remember just off the top of my head. Sean Newcomb, been great. I know I'm forgetting another one. Brian Hudson. There we go. Again, I'm going off rip. They got guys in the back end of that bullpen. Again, a solid team that I think ends up winning the division. I might end up putting a bet on the White Sox to win this division. The thing is, the odds aren't quite juicy enough, but I do think they should be the favorite over Cleveland. And I still like Cleveland. It's not really a detriment to them. It's a testament to the White Sox. I believe in this team, and I think they're going to win the division.
I think the question for them is going to be, all right, you're definitely a year early, or even some people might have thought 2 years early. How do you balance long-term, what's best for the long, sustainable run you want to have with a wide open American League and a wide open division?
So I've been thinking about that. And it's a really good question, because I think to myself, the White Sox are near the top of the division, and a lot of their young guys are currently on the team. Kyle Teal is back, right? It's a lot of their young guys. They only have Murakami for 1.5 more years. Then he's going to hit the open market. The White Sox are not known for giving out big long-term deals. Maybe it will change. Who knows? But over the last decade, that has not been their MO. It really has never been their MO. So while these guys are young and cheap and you're playing well, you decide that you want to build a long, sustainable future. What does that future look like? What if a lot of these young players don't produce next season? We see that with young players all the time. That's what I yell from the rooftops before every season. And people look at me like I have 4 eyes, where it's like, no, not this young player. He's going to be perfect. And then he ain't, because most of them aren't. It's hard. Baseball is such a tough sport. I think they should go for it. I'm not saying like trade all of your top prospects and you have to go get Skubal, but I think they should buy strategically because they can compete in this American League, because this American League stinks. The White Sox have been a disaster over the last half decade. Give your fans something to root for. Like, I'm thinking they could trade Jacob Gonzalez in order to get a really good piece. Why? What are they going to do with him when Munetaka Murakami comes back anyway? You found Murakami. So Jacob Gonzalez is having a good stretch. Good. Go trade him for a good starting pitcher. Like, they can trade without burning it down their farm system and still have a good system. They're about to draft number 1 overall. You know what I mean? If they get a Von Lackey, maybe somebody wants to buy low on an Edgar Caro. I'm not saying trade Colson Montgomery, but you will have Rock Chalowski be up by probably next season or maybe the season after. You know, so again, I think the White Sox are in a position to buy, and I think they should.
And I think if you were to buy, I mean, I don't know about a trade, you know, with the Twins, but just in general, if you were to buy a pitcher like a Joe Ryan or somebody that has an extra year of control, well, now, all right, you can justify a little bit more because you have multiple runs at it. So I think that's maybe the sweet spot when you're a team like this, is try to trade for some pieces that have control. And then it's not as much of a hit to your long-term outlook, because, hey, either that piece that you get, if it's a top flight starter that has 2 years, well, either that's going to be a huge piece of 2 years of winning, or if you take a step back next year, that's a guy you could always still have capital to flip and, you know, reinvigorate the farm system. So yeah, I think they should go for it. I am a little curious. You had the Marlins at 10.
Yeah.
I had the Marlins at 8 off of the best month in baseball, 20-6. This Marlins team's unbelievable. What they're doing at the Loan is crazy, that this is like the toughest ballpark to go play. I'm curious kind of where you're at with this Marlins team.
I'm high on them. I thought ranking them 10, you know, felt really good for me for a Marlins team that's 46-40 at the end of the day, right? Because they've had this, what are they, 21-6 in June?
Yeah, 20-6.
20-6 maybe, to be 6 games over 500, right? And I think the rotation I'm still not in love with. And I think, because I'm also kind of thinking moving forward, really like Max Meyer, no doubt. Sandy has had a great month, but I need to see more than a great month, right? He was great early on, and I'm like, holy shit, Sandy's back. And then he really struggled. That might be what we have with Sandy now, where he's just not able to be this consistent for the entire season, but still shows flashes of greatness. When Sandy's on a heater and he's at Lone Depot, I love watching him pitch. But then sometimes it doesn't go that well. Yuri Perez, another guy, insane stuff, inconsistent. And then what? Tyler Phillips, fill in the blank. Not big on that. I like their bullpen. Don't love their bullpen. Pete Fairbanks in the closer role he's got an ERA over 6. I would know he's on my fantasy team. And then the lineup, I like the lineup. Like, it's a good, I ranked him top 10.
Yeah.
But I like the White Sox better. I do. And I'm not sure if the Marlins are going to buy at the deadline, which also kind of crept into the back of my head. They're not going to just sell, and but I just don't know if Peter Bendix is the GM to get risky. He might. I hope he does. Oh, that would be awesome. I'm rooting for it. But if you put me up to a lie detector test, I would say that he doesn't. Or if I said that he would, I'd be lying. There you go. You know where my opinion is at. So I think, again, splitting hairs between those teams. You ready to get in the top 5, or you want to talk about why I have the Phillies at 6 as we transition into the top 5?
I think we bring that into the next 5 here.
All right, Podcast B, before we get into the next 5, would you mind giving us our next break?
Hampton Farms peanuts, 7 grams of protein per serving. Get yours using code JustBaseball for 25% off.
Hampton Farms, baby. All right, let's get into the top 5. 5 best teams in baseball. Podcast P is giving it to us. So Just Baseball's 5-1. You got the Yankees at number 5, the Braves at number 4, the Phillies at number 3, the Brewers at number 2, and the Dodgers at number 1. For me, I have the Yankees at 5, the Rays at 4, the Braves at 3, the Brewers at 2, and the Dodgers at 1. So I'm already seeing the difference. You have the Phillies higher because they've just maybe been the best team in baseball in the month of June. The Braves are still higher. That's why I still have them higher. I think I still like them moving forward better than the Phillies. The Rays are in first place over the Yankees. Even with my bias, I get they have a better run differential. But without Aaron Judge until August, I just have to put the Rays above them. I've watched them play a lot, and I just feel like the Rays are better. But give me the June outlook for how you fell into the top 5.
Yeah, so I mean, the Yankees Rays, it was a coin flip. I could have gone either way with it. I don't really have a strong take on why we kept the Yankees at 5 and when we dropped the Rays out of the top 5. They played to a similar record. There's nothing there that I could say that's really gonna like move the needle much. I think the bigger difference that we have here, and it's something we talked about last week, was kind of my belief that this Phillies team might win the NL East, and they continue to play great baseball. I don't know. It's a team that I feel like just knows how to win games. I think they have enough at the back end of their bullpen to win the close games. They have 3 starters that I like, 2 starters of that 3 that I love. And then just Kyle Schwarber, man, he is so unbelievable. He has perfected 3 true outcomes in a way no hitter ever has. And he's going to lead. We're actually having an article in the works just about the Hall of Fame with Schwarber, just because he's going to make writers just have to spend so much time trying to go back and forth between like this guy. If you look at where Schwarber's at, he legitimately by the end of this contract can get to like 550 home runs. Like the pace that he's on, and there's no reason he's slowing down. Like who's to say he's not going to average 50 home runs a season for the next 3 or 4 years? So I don't know. When I look at a team that has been winning for years now, they have Schwarber, they have Harper, they have Christopher Sanchez and Zach Wheeler atop this rotation, and they're trending way up. They were 18-9 in June, and the Braves, who we have a slot below, were 9-14. I just couldn't in good conscience put the Braves over the Phillies in our power rankings simply because they have a slightly better regular season record. They had like an 11-game lead in this division, and the Phillies have cut it to 2.5. And a lot of that came this month. So that's why I put the Phillies above them. But I know you're going to point out the run differential right now, aren't you, about why the Braves are still better than the Phillies?
No, I'm going to point out the fact that the Phillies ranked 22nd in OPS. So for all the hype about Schwarber, and I love Schwarber. Schwarbombs are like a top 5 thing in baseball. I mean, you got like Cam Schlittler's fastball, the Schwarbombs. Or actually, Mizorowski's fastball is above Cam Schlittler's fastball. The Phillies offense is now starting to become overrated because of how good Schwarber and Harper are. But you still have the Trey Turner problem. Marsh and Bohm are stepping up, but then you get down the lineup and it's a lot of lech. But I would say, starting at 7 where the Cubs are, the Cubs down, like for example, my top 7 is Cubs, Phillies, Yankees, Rays, Braves, Brewers, Dodgers, going from 7 to 1. That's where there's then separation. Like I almost feel we're doing clumps of 5, but I would put the Cubs and the Phillies in the same bucket as these other teams. With the Cubs, because we kind of skipped over them a little bit, and I see some people in our YouTube comment section asking for more Cubs. I think and I've talked about the Cubs a lot, which is why I wanted to focus on a lot of other teams. But my thing is with the Cubs, with a rotation that is as decimated as it is, it's hard for me to be as bullish when I see a lot of other teams are much healthier. And unfortunately, it's not their fault. But why are the Cubs still an overall good team and still in that upper tier where I put them is because the offense, when it gets rolling, there is almost nobody who can stop you. Almost nobody. But we haven't been consistent with that. We were in stretches at the beginning of the season where I would come in and I would be like, I can't stop watching the Cubs. I watch every second of the Cubs. Oh my God, this is the best team ever. Just because they're so entertaining. And Pete Armstrong, we're going to talk about him later, Players of the Month. 3.1 F4 this season. Or excuse me, it should be this season. But it was this month. I think pace for 21 WAR in a year. If he did this over every month, he's been playing out of control. Dansby Swanson has been way better. This is a great Cubs lineup. This is a fine Cubs bullpen, and it's a rotation that, hashtag not your fault, has been decimated. So comparing to the other teams, they're just not quite there, but they're still in that upper tier because I know they will eventually get healthier. But going back to the top five, tell me
can I just give my 2 cents on the Cubs real quick because I have 3 things. One, Dansby Swanson had, I want to say it was 15 RBIs in a series against the Mets. Yeah. So that juiced the numbers a little bit. But I think the other thing to mention with them, and obviously some of that war for Pete Armstrong kind of illustrates it, their defense is so good too. So like that hedges some of the pitching concerns where now a guy that I know very well, David Peterson's in that rotation. I think they're going to see a lot better from Peterson than the 6 ERA had with the Mets just by virtue of having a defense behind him that he can actually trust.
And just real quick, I don't want to, just on the defense point, you talk about the Cubs, couldn't agree with you more. Phillies 29th in defensive runs saved. Like, again, nobody cares about the little things. I do. Even though I do have the Phillies above them, because again, when you have Sanchez, Wheeler versus Colin, Ray, Javier Assad, there's a gap. Even Cubs fans would admit it there.
I actually think if we tiered it off, like how we tiered this, I honestly think that the 4 best teams in baseball this year are the Dodgers, Brewers, Phillies, Braves. I really think that that's going to hold true throughout the rest of this season. My big difference between the Phillies and the Braves, again, much hotter month. And I know that David Dombrowski is going to do stuff at this deadline. I don't know if Alex Anthopoulos is going to do much of anything. And that's another thing I look at when it comes to who's going to win this division. If the Phillies get a back end starter and they find a one bat to plug in to Adolis Garcia's spot in the outfield, I mean, they're just a couple moves away from being really dangerous. And they did that last year when they got Duran and they got Bader. So that's the thing is I have more faith right now in this division in the Braves over the Phillies than any team, and even the Braves that I don't know. I don't know if they're going to push the right buttons here. So,
no, I get it. And I think that's certainly something to consider because I said it on the show as well. I don't know how aggressive Alex Anthopoulos is going to be, even though I think he absolutely should be. And I feel better about Dave Dombrowski being aggressive. But I actually weirdly think that this bad stretch by Atlanta is a good thing. And I'm going to tell you why. I think it's pushing the Braves' problems to the top quickly, where Anthopoulos is seeing it starting to fall, where it's like, oh, wait, we aren't this perfect team that nobody can stop. It's sometimes not the worst thing to have a bad stretch near the deadline when you've already made up all of this ground anyway. Right? Whether you win the division by 5 games or you win the division by 2 or 10, it doesn't really matter. You want to go win the division. So sometimes having a bad stretch isn't the end of the world. And the Braves have decided to have their bad stretch right now. Again, talked about Matthew Liberatore, having a great start against the Braves. The Braves bats have also looked like shit, right? Which has lowered their OPS down to 15th. Can't forget, this Braves team was the second best team in baseball, arguably the best team in baseball a month ago. Then they had a bad stretch, but they're also going to get healthier. There's still no Ronald Acuna Jr. It's still a Braves team that has been battered and bruised, and yet they're still 2.5 games above the Phillies when the Phillies are playing out of their mind this month. I think the Braves, again, and another team, they're an average base running team and a great defensive team. Little areas that people don't pay attention to. Braves don't make mistakes. They punish mistakes. They haven't been doing it this month. I'm not going to hold it against them too much. I still think the Braves are a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, and I think by keeping them at 4 despite their bad month, it kind of shows that we still aren't all the way out on the Braves. It's just for a power rankings where we are factoring in recent performance. We just couldn't put the Braves over the Phillies. I don't know. How did you possibly come to the Dodgers at 1? That's just crazy, right?
And the Brewers at 2. I think those are the class. Those
Of
two
baseball.
teams, again, it's almost like they're in their own tier a
Yeah.
little bit. The Dodgers are kind of in their own tier, and the Brewers are also in their own tier. It's like tier 1, tier 2, and then tier 3 is 7 teams. But I think the
Yeah,
Brewers
probably.
deserve to be in tier 2. But the Brewers are still so freaking good. And this question comes to us. What happened to Austin Riley? You tell us. It is one of the most shocking things that I've seen. Perpetual 5-win player, 30 and 100 in his sleep, has just been hurt and terrible for 3 seasons now. Well, 2.5. It's gonna be a great offseason article. My guess, written by Aram. Just a full
What's
diagnosis
happening?
in
Where's
what
the swing
hell
at? Yeah. No, I remember getting a little bit of flack for how low I had Austin Riley on my top 10 third baseman.
Probably
but,
from me.
yeah.
Like, probably from me. And someone saying he's washed. Again, the numbers would say that you're right, but I can't do it because I know there's talent in there. But it keeps getting pushed further and further deeper down, and now I can't see it. But I think it's there. Last thing, Yankees Rays. I rank the Rays slightly higher, and maybe it's because, again, I'm a fan, and I'm also a very pessimistic fan. Except when you get me in the playoffs, then I buy in. But in the regular season, I feel like I tend to hate them more than love them. And watching this stretch, watching how bad the defense has been. I mean, dear God, people on the internet are being like, Cam Schiller should have given up those 4 runs. No, we shouldn't. They were unearned for a reason. We can't defend. We can't defend behind anybody. It's because everybody's playing out of position. Jose Caballero is playing center today. With Grisham hurt and Judge hurt, it's put a lot of guys in different positions than they've played before. With Ryan McMahon hurt. Like Ryan McMahon, I know he can't hit water if he fell off a boat, but he's an elite defender. Like the Yankees are at their best when Anthony Volpe is the problem. That's when they're at their best. But Anthony Volpe is on a bad stretch offensively, and nobody's really talking about it because the entire team sucks. Like, Jazz has been inconsistent, but better. I'll give him that. Ben Rice and Paul Goldschmidt are holding us up. And Austin Wells is awful.
Oh, man.
And I think the bullpen, I heard Aram and Jack talking about it yesterday, that it's his big issue. I don't think it's as big of an issue, at least lately. Because Brent Hedrick's been great. I still think Fernando Cruz is awesome. David Bednar is on a paternity list, but he'll be back. Tim Hill I still like. Like, they got arms they need to add, but I don't think it's as big of a problem. I think the problem is right now the Yankees are injured. They got guys playing out of position, and nobody's hitting outside of Goldschmidt and Ben Rice. That's the issue. And then I look at the Rays, and I see it doesn't matter what the Chandler Simpson does at the leadoff position or what 5, 6, 7, and 8 does, and 9. Because Aranda Jr. and Yandy are out of this world. Yandy overtook Otto Lopez for the batting average lead. Junior Caminero hits a home run every day. And Jonathan Aranda, when Junior doesn't hit that home run and it's a double, or Yandy gets on from a single, drives him in. One of the league leaders in RBIs. It's such a good trio that it kind of doesn't matter. Drew Rasmussen, we're going to talk about later. Their rotation has become solidified. Their bullpen outside of Brian Baker, it's a lot of guys that you don't love, but they do a job. Like, they just feel better. They feel better. And maybe it's the first time I've used the word feel. We're an hour and 15 in. And that's why I can't really be trusted all the time to talk about the Yankees, because my feelings come out. I don't know how to not be myself and talk about my feelings when it comes to the Yankees. That's something I need to improve on. I'll ask you, I'll ask Arm, I'll ask Jack. I'm a feelings guy. But back to most important. Why are you Yankees versus Rays? Why do you like the Yankees better?
I mean, honestly, I just can't get over the bar that you just dropped. That's going to make a great quote card of the Yankees are at their best when Anthony Volpe is the problem. I mean, that's just I see it on X already. I see the graphic. I'm looking forward to it. I, I said it before, like I don't have a strong take on these teams, and I honestly think you convinced me. We probably should have had the Rays fifth and slid the Yankees out of the top five. It's two teams that this past month played about 500 baseball, and they're the class of a really bad American League, and for me, moving forward, it's kind of a coin flip to see who's going to win the division. But they're the two teams in the American League I know are going to be in the playoffs. I'll tell you that. I don't think there's any other team in the American League I can say for certainty will be in the playoffs. So
yeah, based on the data, which I pretty much follow all the time and which helps me on my futures, and I feel like this is almost the best part of my podcasting game, is these predictions. And the reason I'm perpetually wrong on the Yankees is because I don't trust the data. Like, analytically, the Yankees are a way better team than the Rays. They are. Look at the run differential. This is separated by 70 runs. It's not even close. The Yankees, look at how good the rotation is on paper. Look at their bullpen. It's like top 10 in ERA. The offense, I know it's without Judge right now, but still they haven't been, I mean, in June they have been, but over the season they've been great. Doesn't matter. I see a Yankees team that is struggling again in June and will probably struggle again in July. They'll pick up a few pieces. They might win the division. They'll get in the playoffs. They'll go on a run and just get bounced by a team that's worse than them, or go to the World Series and get trounced. It's the same thing every year. We don't have to talk about them. Let's talk about players of the month. You want to talk about players of the month? Real quick, Podcast P, would you mind giving us our last whoosh? Players of the month. Why don't you lead us through it? You guys picked it, and I totally agree with you. I got nothing to debate this one on. We're just going to highlight the players of the month.
I don't even have it in front of me.
Well, so I know them off the top of my head, at least in the National League. Player of the month, easy. Pete Crow Armstrong of the Chicago Cubs. Podcast Pete, would you mind flashing the graphic of what this man has done? In the month of June, 11 homers, a 1249 OPS, a 236 WRC plus, which means he was 136% better than a league average hitter, and a 3.1 F-WAR. And we're starting to see the evolution of Pete Crow Armstrong, because I think a lot of fans that haven't been watching him might just think that PCA is on a hot streak, right? And we've seen hot streaks from PCA before. But PCA has made tangible changes that tell me the lows are not nearly going to be as low anymore, and the highs might be even higher than even 2025 second in MVP voting in the first half, Pete Crow Armstrong. And it has to do with plate discipline. Pete Crow Armstrong is not swinging out of his shoes at sliders in the dirt all the time like he used to. Have you seen the jump in walk rate? Have you seen the jump in pitches per plate appearance? Have you seen some of the takes in game that maybe not show up on a stat sheet? But when I'm watching the Cubs, I'm like, that's a pitch PCA used to always swing at. And here are the numbers between 2025 first half PCA. Thank you to Podcast P for bringing them up. And the 2026 season, right? We're talking about the best of the best for PCA. His xWOBA is about 25 points higher. His average exit velocity is about 1.5 miles higher. His bat speed is up 2 miles an hour. His overall swing rate is down 11.4%. He's not swinging as much. And guess what? His walk rate has nearly doubled. Nearly doubled. Actually, not nearly. More than doubled. Payne's giving me like, no, it's more than doubled. And I'm like, yes, it definitely is. This is not up and down PCA having a good month. This is a much better player with even higher highs than his highest of highs that he showed us in the past.
Yeah. We got to remember, this is a 24-year-old. This is a guy that, kind of arrived, pretty early, especially last year, where I think we're first half talking about, is PCA going to be the best center fielder in baseball? And now he's certainly looking like it. That second half kind of lowered his stock to a pretty wide margin. I was like, all right, well, Is he going to be that hitter? Is he just a streaky guy? Like you said, the discipline is a lot different than the last time I've seen PCA. I just, watched the Mets play the Cubs recently, and he's just getting in good counts, and for a guy that can do as much damage as Pete Crow Armstrong, you get into good counts, you're going to get more pitches to hit, and it becomes a much simpler game. What he just did is insane, and I think there's still going to be some streakiness to Pete Crow Armstrong's game. But like you mentioned, if the valleys aren't nearly as bad and not nearly as long, and then he has heaters like this, I mean, it's not even crazy to say, granted, Shohei Ohtani plays in his league, but it's not crazy to say that an MVP could be in Pete Crow Armstrong's future because, I mean, you mentioned it before, the 21 WAR, if you average it out or whatever it is, like if there's a guy in baseball that could put up a 13 WAR and out-WAR Shohei Ohtani pitching and hitting in the National League, very well could just be Pete Crow Armstrong.
And that's why I think, whenever PCA makes an error, it's national news. And it makes people who don't watch PCA often think that he's overrated defensively. But the reason you see it once a month and you don't see a lot of PCA diving plays is because he's getting to the baseball before other guys, where he's standing up, making a catch, where other guys are letting it either drop or they're making that diving catch that makes you think they can even somewhat stand against PCA defensively. This is an all-world defender. This is the best defender in Major League Baseball. Maybe you say Patrick Bailey. But again, catcher, center field is very different.
Center field is just
non-catchers. PCA is the best defender in Major League Baseball. Let's go over to the American League. Because the American League Player of the Month, drum roll please, who else but Junior Caminero? Now, there have been other guys. Jack Caglione has had an incredible month. Yordan Alvarez has an incredible month every month. He's just the best, as good of a hitter as there is in Major League Baseball. But Junior Caminero is our American League Player of the Month. 10 homers, OPS over 1,000, well over 1,000, close to 1,100, 187 WRC plus and a 1.3 F4. And it's another reminder that this guy is 22 years old. And another guy putting himself into better counts. His walk rate has also doubled. He's walking at a 13% clip with a 17% strikeout rate. How many 22-year-olds can you remember with that good a plate discipline who also have 23 home runs by July 1st? This guy has future Hall of Famer written all over him. The way he backspins baseballs, I've said it a million times, and I'm going to say it a million more because it's different. Again, between 2025, 2026, walk rate 6% to 13%, chasing 4% less, swinging a lot less. OBP has jumped from 311 to 384. Why? Well, he's improving as a ball player, 1, getting himself into better counts, 2, and number 3, he has protection. With Yandy and Aranda, you can't just throw sliders and hope Junior Caminero swings at them or takes them and gets a walk. It's not happening anymore. He's waiting for his pitch, and when he gets it, he's putting it in the seats. Incredible player. Just such a dangerous, dangerous player. Like Manny Ramirez-esque at the plate.
Yeah, no, he's unbelievable. And I was just looking, and is Junior Caminero the next monster free agent that we're going to have? Because most of these guys are signing extensions. Pete Crow Armstrong signed an extension. So I am just curious and thinking about what does that look like in a couple of years if this guy gets to the open market? Because at his age, I mean, that it could be like the next Juan Soto deal. He's got to do a lot to get to that point. But like you said, future Hall of Famer written all over him. He's at the beginning of what looks like a ridiculous career.
Yeah, 100%. And I think less Soto, more Vladdy, maybe. The 14,500, I don't think he'd get 765 like Soto did. But because, again, Soto's plate discipline is just out of this world. But Junior continues to get better in that category. And, again, just a phenomenal player. Let's go over to the pitchers. Podcast P, would you remind us who our National League Pitcher of the Month is? Thanos, a.k.a. Logan Webb. 38 innings. He's given up 3 earned runs. 0.71 ERA. Not a big strikeout guy. Who cares? He is an artist. He's Picasso at work. He's painting corners like you wouldn't believe. The sinker, the changeup, everything's working. And maybe you might hit it hard. Well, it's on the ground anyway. Someone is gobbling up on the infield. There's not much to say about Logan Webb because he's not one of these young pitchers or young hitters developing into something new. It's just Logan Webb being Logan Webb and putting guys in his back pocket and throwing it wherever he wants. Look at this. Just look at this video, Fink. God, it's pretty. He's just the best when you're watching him go to work.
Yeah, he is. He is. And I think it's perfect to say there's not much to say about Logan Webb because nobody ever has much to say about Logan Webb. I remember when I was ranking our top starting pitchers before the season, I just checked here. I was the high guy on Logan Webb. I had him at 4 and nobody else. Everyone else mostly had him at 6. But it's just, I feel like there's not a pitcher in baseball going into a season that you can put your head on the pillow feeling better about than Logan Webb. You just know he's going to start every 5th day. You know he's going to eat up a ton of innings. And he's just, honestly, I think over the past 5 years, a guy that's just been criminally underrated with how much conversation that's around him. And it's because there's flashier guys like a Skeens that burst onto the scenes. But Logan Webb is just, you're getting 200 to 220 innings, then he's going to pitch an ERA in the 2s, if not low 3s at worst. He's so consistent.
And on the American League side, Drew Rasmussen of the Tampa Bay Rays. In the month of June, 33 innings, a 0.82 ERA, but he's been a strikeout artist at 10.64 Ks per 9. You know what's funny about Drew Rasmussen? When I watch him and I watch Cam Schlittler, I see similar offerings. And it reminds me of Corbin Burns in his heyday, where it was cutter, sinker, four-seamer, wherever you want. And guys are just guessing wrong. And when they finally figure out the heaters, here comes a changeup. Here comes a curveball. Here comes a slider. Like, did you see that last cutter? He's moving it wherever he wants with 3 different variations, and guys are just guessing wrong. And even if they guess right, the quality of the stuff is so good. And another reason why you should be turning on Drew Rasmussen starts every 5th day is he fills up the zone. This is not a guy who is at the 100 pitch count mark by the 5th inning. He's cruising through 6 innings. He's daring you to hit it. And again, like Cam Schlittler, right? Guys who just fill up the zone with different variations of heaters. And once you're on the heater, now come the breaking balls of the off-speed pitches, and guys just can't adjust. Drew Rasmussen is fantastic. And of course, he had an incredible month.
Yeah, I don't even know if I have anything else to add. I think you summed it up perfectly. He's just one of the best pitchers that does not get talked about. So I'm glad that we gave him some recognition, and he obviously earned it. And there might be, who knows, some more pitchers of the month coming his way this year, the way he's throwing the ball right now.
And that'll do it for this episode of the Just Baseball Show. Thank you to everybody here watching us live on YouTube. Make sure to hit the like button and subscribe button. And if you're listening on audio, the best way to support, leave a 5-star review wherever you get your podcast. If you want to get yourself some Just Baseball merch, you can find the link in the episode description. You want to join the best baseball group chat in the world, link in the episode description. Special shout out to Podcast P for brilliant producing once again. Ryan, thank you for coming on. We'll have you on a bunch more times, obviously, because you're awesome. For Ryan Finkelstein, I'm Peter Apple. We will see you tomorrow with Buster Only. And with that, thank you, everybody.